Hi. Have you ever looked at a painting and thought that the artwork looked a lot like a texture? Or that if you reached out and touched the painting, that it would feel exactly like that texture? Now, imagine if there was an art technique that allowed an artist to achieve that kind of look. This technique is called impasto. I've done art classes almost every year of my school life, and I've even won awards for my art. In the past, I've done a couple of impasto paintings before because I love to paint, especially using acrylic paint. Many of the most famous artists have used this art technique in their artworks, and this is a tradition that still continues to today. To understand impasto, one must first know what it is. In order to do this, one must know the origins of impasto and how to use it. A person could have a better understanding of impasto once they know more about the artists that have used it and the famous paintings that they have done. Now that I have established the topic, I would like to talk about it more in depth. Impasto is an art technique in which paint is thickly layered so it stands out against a surface. One can use this to convey a sense of emotion, thought, feeling, or mood. As Shelley Isaac once said, impasto is an Italian word that comes from impastare, im meaning upon and pasta meaning paste, or in this case, paint. Artists use tools such as knives, brushes, and even fingers to achieve the impasto art look. One important thing about impasto is that the artists don't really try to hide the brush marks or the knife marks that they use. Traditionally, artists will use things such as oil paints for impasto. However, in more modern art pieces, artists have used acrylic paint as well. While knowing the definition of impasto is helpful, having a rich knowledge of this art technique can lead to a greater appreciation of it. Some of the earliest impasto arts comes from the Renaissance and Baroque art periods in the 1600s and 1700s in Europe. Baroque art is all about theatrics and art that is larger than life. This is unlike the neoclassical art, which takes inspiration from Greek and Roman art and has humanism and idealism. Baroque art is all about making exaggerated art that isn't normally realistic. This type of art usually conveys a heavy sense of emotion and drama, the main motifs being things such as bold colors or dark shadows. One important thing about impasto is that the impasto art style creates shadows by creating peaks with the paint, kind of like mountains. According to the Encyclopedia Britannica, impasto is used to, quote, depict lined and wrinkled skin or the sparkle of elaborately crafted armor, jewelry, and rich fabrics. Having some background of the history of this art technique and the era it originated from is helpful. I would like to talk to you about some of the artists that have used impasto. The three artists I would like to focus on that have used impasto in their artworks is Diego Velázquez, Vincent van Gogh, and Jackson Pollock. Diego Velázquez was a Baroque artist who used impasto in an impressive manner. He used impasto to create shadow and even wrinkles on clothes and skin in his artworks. Van Gogh is best known for his Starry Night painting. However, most people do not know that he actually used impasto in his painting to create the swirls in the sky. As Van Gogh once said, sometimes the subject calls for less paint, sometimes the material, the nature of the subjects themselves demands impasto. Jackson Pollock is most well known for his splatter paintings. However, most people do not realize that what Jackson Pollock did when he created his splatter paintings was to use impasto in them. I've seen pictures in which, if you zoom in onto his splatter paintings, you could actually see like the peaks and the ridges of all of the different kinds of paint that he used. Jackson Pollock painted by creating his paintings with several layers, and I feel like knowing this gives a better understanding of his art. It is important to know what impasto is, what it means, and how to use it. By being informed of the history, one can have a better understanding of it and the artists that have used this technique. If you must know anything about impasto, it is that impasto is when paint or any other kind of medium is thickly applied to a surface with brushes or tools. This gives it a unique look. Artists have also used oil paint and acrylic paint to do this. Artists have been using this method for several centuries, ever since the Renaissance and Baroque art periods. Artists such as Diego Velázquez, Vincent van Gogh, and Jackson Pollock. I personally enjoy using this method as well. I feel like art is the connection between reality and imagination and even beyond. And I feel like the impasto art style does this very well. Thank you for listening.